Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
How are we doing?
We're doing good. How are you tonight?
I am wonderful. I am ready to make some risotto.
I don't know him.
Hi, everybody. I'm trying to see who we have. I see Joan. Hi, Joan. I'm Emily.
I know. How are you? I haven't seen you in years.
It has been years. Hey, Jeff.
You can connect.
Emily?
No.
I see Kathy's kitchen. Hi, Mark. Hey, Kathy.
Oh.
It's been a million years since I've seen you, too.
You're like so close.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to our shrimp cooking class, or shrimp risotto cooking class, I should say. Is everyone ready to have a little bit of fun?
You bet.
All right.
Ready to eat.
Ready to eat? Cool.
Forget the fun. Bring on the food.
No,
Eating is fun.
Cheers.
Cheers. There you see, that's more fun.
Mhm.
All right, so look at the size of that martini. It's beautiful. All right. All right, so let's talk about what we're doing today. So we're going to make a shrimp risotto. Now, making risotto, you guys have what's called Carnaroli rice. Is the rice we gave you. There's over 4,000 different types of rice, and I want to say like 800 of them can all be used to make risotto. So the most common one that you hear of is arborio rice. I like Carnaroli rice, which is what you have here. The difference is the Carnaroli grain is longer, whereas arborio is shorter and fatter. So if you take a piece of rice and you look at it, you have an opaque outside and a white inside. So when we make the risotto, what's going to happen is the outside of the rice, that kind of see-through part, that's going to dissolve into the risotto, and that's going to make your starchiness, while the inside white part stays al dente. So that's why I like Carnaroli, because that inside white part's a little bit bigger. Arborio is shorter and fatter, so you get a little bit mushier of a risotto, but it's still creamy. So we're using Carnaroli. We also have chicken stock. We're going to use some water from your sink too, but I don't want the thing to be 100% chicken stock. So, and I figure everyone has water. Shrimp, salt, tomato, onion, butter, and cheese. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut up our onions and tomatoes and leave them separate, and then we'll go into the pot, and the rest of the process is in the pot. So we'll do that together. I'm going to angle my thing down a little bit so you can see my board. Move some stuff around, and we can get started. So first thing for the onion, just chop it up. You want it, small. It doesn't have to be super small, but like the size of the rice or a little bit bigger is fine, because the onion's going to shrink a little as it cooks.
The people are not muted.
All right. And then same thing with the tomato. We're going to cut the tomato up. And the tomato, if you like it, we're going to add it in the beginning. If you don't want tomato in yours, you could just omit it, whatever you prefer. I really like the tomato in there because we're going to stew it down and give a nice strong tomato flavor to our risotto. Okay. You guys let me know when you're at that point and we'll get started cooking.
It's so emotional cooking with everybody.
Yeah.
The onions are making me tear up.
Yeah. Yeah, they'll do that to you. Chef Mark is back in the house, ladies and gentlemen.
Bet.
With his named apron, which I love.
Helps me stay separate from Chef Steven, my son.
Can do that.
All right, so we're gonna take our small sauce pots and get them over a low heat. And to that, you're gonna add 1 tab of butter. And once that starts to melt, we're gonna throw our onions in.
And how small do you cut your tomatoes?
It's up to you because they're gonna shrink down. So I cut them, I don't know if you can really see the size, but 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch or so.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they're gonna break down completely, so it doesn't matter the size as much.
Okay.
So cooking risotto is a ton of fun. If you've never done it before, it's a really cool process. I love it. I love making risotto. I always have. For years, I thought I knew how to do it, and then bless you. And then when I went to Spiaggia, I learned that I was doing it completely wrong. Go figure. But they have just an incredible. I mean, they have the best risotto in the city there. So you want to take your onions and just get them to a nice translucent state. You want to kind of see through them and soften them up really nice. And we're using the straight butter, so that means you want to keep your temperature a little bit lower so it doesn't brown and burn completely. This should only take about 2 minutes to get to this point.
That's for risotto.
Oh, nice. See, those are good because they have the rounded edges like what I have here. So it's going to keep it from sticking in the corners.
Right.
Those work really well. Like here, I have rounded edges in the pan, and then I use a high heat spatula so that I could really get in there. But a wooden spoon works great for the same reason. What's that?
Spoon guy.
They're the same.
Eat clockwise.
So now that my onions have cooked down a little and gotten to that translucent stage, I'm gonna add all these tomatoes into here. And what I wanna do is cook out the rawness of the tomatoes, and I wanna cook out a lot of the liquid too, and kind of make this whole stewed tomato here. And this is gonna really fortify the flavors of the tomatoes, but not add a lot of liquid into our cooking process. It's making almost like what's called a tomato concasse in French cooking.
Yeah.
It's just stewed down chopped tomatoes, except for concasse, you normally peel them. But what you're gonna see is you're gonna see the tomatoes give off a ton of water, and then you're gonna see them start to dry up, and we want them to dry up. So we're not gonna add salt yet. If I add salt now, they're gonna give off too much water and those sugars won't react properly. So I want them to first release some water, then we'll add the salt, and then we'll let the sugar reaction happen. If you have enough space in your pan, you see this doesn't take long to happen. I mean, they're breaking down, they're stewing nicely. And they smell phenomenal. I love tomatoes like this.
I have just realized something. Your small pan is a very different scale than my small pan.
Do you have the wrong size pan again, Emily?
Maybe. And
You know,
I upgraded from my original small plan. But yeah, I think I could have gone bigger considering what you're using as a small pan and you're doing it for 1 and I'm doing it for 2 and my pan's smaller than yours.
So the cool thing about risotto, and people don't realize this, is you can actually do it in a saute pan too. Because if you just add less liquid but more often, and you can do it in a saute pan, you just have to understand that your rice is going to grow. So if you take a look here, my tomatoes are breaking down. They're starting to get a little color on the side of the pot. I'm going to add a little bit of salt to this and let this cook for another minute. My sizzle dirty. And now at this point, I'm going to add my tomatoes in here, or I'm sorry, my tomatoes are in here, my rice in here. So the whole point of doing this is I want to release some of the starches in the rice. So you almost kind of like toast your rice up for a second, and you'll see the rice start to get a little clear. That activates the starches on the outer part of the rice. And this you only do for about 30 seconds, and then I'm going to add all the chicken stock in.
It's not even warm or anything like that.
What's not warm?
The chicken stock.
You won't have to, because it's so little, you don't really have to add a ton. You don't have to heat it up. It's of course, it's always better to add hot stock to hot rice, but because it's so little, it heats up in seconds when we put it in.
But
So
if
it's not a big deal.
A full portion.
I'm sorry, you broke up there.
If I were making a larger amount, I would.
You would start with hotter stock, sure.
Okay. I just,
But you see mine's already coming to a simmer.
yes.
Looks like Jeff's starting a fire.
Again? Jeff, well, in Jeff's defense, he's making like 18 orders over there. He's
How big is your pan,
I got
Jeff?
hungry boys. I don't know. This looks like maybe four quarts.
So now we want to bring this up to a boil. So normally with risotto, they're like, you have to stir it the whole time. You don't have to. Not in the beginning. Once, as the rice starts to absorb the liquid, it gets heavier and it starts to grab and it starts to release starches. That's when we'll start the stirring process. Here, you just want to give it one stir occasionally just to make sure that it's not sticking to the bottom. But you can let this do its thing for a minute or two. Now, if I wanted to do, say, a mushroom risotto or anything like that, I would normally cook those ingredients on the side and then add them in after this phase, after it absorbs the first amount of liquid. For the shrimp, we're actually going to poach the shrimp inside our risotto. So we're going to add these a little bit later on. But right now we have that tomato flavor stewing and that rice cooking up at the initial grab of the liquid. So it's going to be really fantastic when it's all done. But you can see as I'm stirring it, it's already starting to absorb some of that liquid. It's amazing to realize when you realize how much liquid this rice actually takes on, because normally you do about 4 parts water to 1 part rice. And I've had certain rices like 1 year aged risottos and stuff, 1 year aged rices and things where it takes 6, almost up to 8 parts water or liquid. It's crazy. But this one takes about 4 parts. So for 1 cup, we'll normally use about 4 total cups of liquid.
That's what I use.
So I'm going to grab a touch of water for our next step.
That's what I use.
Regular.
Okay, I think I'm still waiting for my tomatoes. What was your recommendation on how you know your tomatoes are?
You just you want them to change color. You want them to be stewy looking. Can you point your camera at the pot?
Oh no.
Uh-oh, we lost Emily.
Yeah, because I can't, work technology. I think that it's good now.
Yeah, it looks good. It looks good. Yeah, they've broken down. See how there's not a lot of liquid at the bottom? That's great. So now you add your rice in and you cook it for a minute. And then if anyone knows any opera while you're waiting for it to, absorb, you can sing some opera. I'm not a singer.
You never know until you try, Chef.
Yeah, thankfully no one else on here is either.
And you add the salt when you add the broth?
You add the salt right before you add the rice. Or if you've added your rice, you can add your salt now. It's okay. But don't add all of it. Just add like 2 pinches. All the salt's going to do is really bring out that tomato flavor. Someone's playing opera.
There we go.
Okay, So now risotto at this point, it's a process, right? So we got to wait till this comes down, which it's absorbing nicely. I'm starting to see the grains of rice through the liquid, which is great because that means it's grabbing a ton of it. And then after this step is when we'll add the shrimp. Now I'm going to show you a little trick at the end about the butter and cheese and when to properly add it to make just a phenomenal risotto. But we're going to build first the rest of our rice and add the shrimp and everything. So if you look when I stir it now, you can start seeing the grains of rice in there. That's awesome. That means it's starting to absorb. And we want that. And it's got a little bit of browning around the bottom of the pan, but that's because the tomatoes are in there. If I didn't have the tomatoes, it'd be a completely white pan. Like this. See at the bottom how it's all white?
Chef, I have another question because I did not unpack the box myself today. I'm making 2 servings. There are 2 chicken broths, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Just dump both in then?
Yep. I'm sorry, what's that, John?
And both things of chicken?
Yeah, absolutely. At both. So the old method used to be that you add a little bit of broth and a little bit of broth and a little bit of broth. You don't need to do that. You start with a good half of what you're going to use to start to get your initial cook done, and then you start to add in little by little as you go.
And did you guys make the broth that it's all, that you have the very gelatinous? And
Yeah, so we make an awesome chicken stock here, and we put chicken feet in it, which has just tons of gelatin. But what that does is it gives you a great mouthfeel and allows a lot of fat to grab into it too when we're making sauces. So I'm a big chicken stock fan, so I always make sure it's got just this rich gelatinous nature to it.
That's we make a lot of chicken stock here too, and I really like it when it's really gelatinous myself. But where do you get your chicken feet? Because we just use bones from whatever chicken we've cooked.
So I get them from my meat company, but say you can't get feet, you can take the backs and stuff, like the bones, and if you run a knife through them to just break them in half, you're going to open up a lot of gelatin. And
Yeah, no, we get that because I like making aspic also, and so we do that. But it never occurred to me about the feet, and that's probably a good idea. I mean, it's a good idea. Just where do you get feet?
I saw it at a Chinese restaurant. I mean, you can get them if you call a butcher and ask; they can get them for you. You normally have to buy them like a 15-pound package, though.
Well, we could share.
There you go. All right, so let's take a look at my rice. So if I pull my pan right now, you can see my rice is moving to the center and the liquid's all absorbed. So at this point, I'm going to add my shrimp in, okay? And I'm going to add another, call it half a cup of water. Now, the goofy thing about risotto is I can't tell you that it's exactly 4 cups of water or 6 cups of water because it's all based on how wide your pan is. But I could show you what you're looking for to get it to that right consistency. Everyone's is going to be just slightly different. If I gave you the exact amount of liquid, it's not going to come out right. One will, one won't. So I add about a half a cup of water and I start to stir and cook this. And I want to see it get to that point of absorption again. And then I'll add another half a cup. And right now I just ease the water in to get it to that point of perfect texture for cooking before we add the butter and cheese. And I want to make sure these shrimp cook in here too. So I'm just going to let this keep cooking. And if you're tending it now, because now you're going to be stirring more frequently, you can turn the temperature all the way up. I mean, as long as you're not just ripping boiling and it's not burping all over you. But if it's an aggressive simmer, absolutely. And what's happening here is this water we added in with the shrimp, it's starting to pick up that shrimp flavor. So you're making basically a shrimp stock that you're cooking your risotto in. So this is going to have a fantastic shrimp flavor when it's all done.
Jeff, if you're cooking multiple servings, did you put it in multiple pans?
You could, yeah.
No, I used
Absolutely.
one bigger pan, but maybe I should have used.
I was just thinking because it's going to take a while for mine to get like chefs, and I'm wondering who else is going to be on here a long time.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm right there with you.
Same, very liquidy still.
All right.
So what happens here is it starts to absorb a lot quicker. If you can see, it's already, and you can tell by pulling it how quickly or slowly the rice forms back together, like when you pull it apart. And we're just gonna keep moving it at this point and letting it just cook. This is all about cooking the rice at this point. The shrimp's gonna cook naturally because it's in a hot broth and it's simmering. But the rice separately. Now, if I was doing a mushroom risotto, a sausage and pepper risotto, I would take all those things I cooked on the side and normally put them in at this point, because I could throw them in at the end, but then I have, you know, plain rice and all the flavorings. If I put them in now, I'm building a great married flavor into one pot. Right. Let's see where we're at with this. Now this should not be done yet, even though it's looking like it is. When I taste it, little pieces get stuck in my teeth, and that's not what we want. Yeah, there's a difference between al dente and raw, right? But a risotto should be al dente. So I'm gonna add a little more water to this. And then after tasting it, I know that I need to add a little bit of salt. I don't wanna add too much salt because I'm gonna add cheese too. But
Okay.
just a pinch, just to my liking.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sure, salt.
Sodium.
And if you've got a lot of liquid in your pan, is this where you might want an aggressive simmer? Is that what you called it?
Yeah. Yeah, you want it to be angry at you.
New York. This is.
See, I like Le Creuset for risotto too, because I think they heat really nicely. All right. So this is the part now where I could tell just from experience that I have enough liquid in mine, and it's gonna, when it's done, it's gonna mount beautifully. But all this starchiness you see in here, this cloudiness, that's from that first layer of the rice releasing, like I talked about. And so you can make a completely dairy-free risotto. If you stir it properly and work it like we're doing now, you can release enough starches where you don't even need to add butter or cheese or anything. And there's oftentimes I do that. There's times I'll add other things in here if I wanted to keep it dairy-free. Like you guys saw, we've done hummus before. I've done soft silken tofu. You can add other ingredients to give that creaminess and make it non-dairy, even a dairy-free butter at the very end. But the natural creaminess here, a touch of olive oil would work really well. It's a great mouthfeel. So I'm gonna keep cooking this, and we're getting really close. If you could see, it's starting to get really like thick and together, but it's not gummy and pasty because that's not what we want. If I taste the rice at this point, it's al dente, so it's a little firm to the tooth, but it's already, you know, soft and palatable and wonderful. So I want to see this liquid absorb up, and then I'll take it to that very end. And then we're going to do what's called mounting. I hate to use this term because people think negative of it. We're going to mount our fat into it, which means we're going to take it off the heat and add the things that are going to make it really rich and delicious. So I want to see this dry up a touch more. I want to see a great separation from my rice so that it's not just a soupy mess. And once I have that, I'm going to take it off the heat. So just 1 second, we're going to do that.
It doesn't
So you want to take it almost dry. So like if I were to pull the risotto here, it's a beautiful risotto consistency, right? But if I take it a little bit drier, it gives me an opportunity to really richen this up.
Okay.
So I keep moving it at this point so it doesn't burn at the bottom. And now, if you look at my rice, it's like a tight pile of rice that you would normally complain about getting if someone called risotto.
Huh?
Well, it's true. But you turn your heat off, you add your butter and your cheese. Now your butter is going to loosen it and your cheese is going to bind it. But you continue to stir and mount this in or fold this in, if you would. And it's going to create just this beautiful, beautiful silky texture. And you're going to have a wonderfully rich risotto. And this is kind of the most important part. This is the step in restaurants where why their risotto tastes so much different and better than something you have at home. Because A, you're not normally going to use butter like this at home unless there's a meal kit, so you have an excuse to. And B, it's just you don't think of it. So when I take this now that the butter is all melted in, if I put this in the plate, I can take the risotto, and if I give it just a little shake, you see how it spreads? That's a great consistency for a risotto. It's loose, but it's tight enough. It's creamy. It smells delicious. I got everything I want in there. No, I'm gonna lie. That's a pretty good risotto.
All right.
So you guys have any questions?
Yeah, how much water did you end up using, Chef?
I ended up using 2 more of the pads of butter. So 1 in the beginning and 2 later on.
Yep. I'm sorry, water.
Oh, water? I ended up using about 1.5 cups of water.
Why don't you use wine?
You could use wine, but you're drinking it all.
No, I'm not.
No, you have so oftentimes when I use wine, I'll use it in the beginning when I do the onions. I'll add wine then. It's just a matter of what flavors you want. You can add wine, you can not add wine. I've done risottos completely in wine, almost from start to finish. It's called the risotto amarone. It's very common in northern Italy. It's fantastic. So I like wine in there, but certain things like this, I love just the rice flavor and the shrimp flavor. It's all preference.
What about shallots instead of onions?
You can use shallots, you can use red onions, no onions, anything to build a base. I like the onions or shallots just because they add a sweetness to the start of the dish, but you don't have to.
Well, I a pound of shallots. I do have the right rice, and I
There you
do
go.
it so I can.
Yeah, you can use shallots just the same way. They'll actually be a little sweeter.
So I wouldn't want vermouth. I usually use vermouth when I'm using wine in risotto.
If you like the flavor of vermouth, I was when I was in college, I had too much Sambuca one night, so I don't like anything licorice flavored really. But if you like vermouth, absolutely, you can use it.
Okay. Well, that's what Julia Child always used.
Yeah, well, she was the queen. She knew what she was doing more than I do.
I used to walk by her house in Cambridge.
Really? That's
Yeah.
amazing. I still use her hard-boiled egg technique.
Yeah. Well,
What's her hard-boiled egg technique?
You bring it, you cover it with 1 inch of water, you bring it to a boil for 2 minutes, then you turn it off and you cover it for 7 minutes. You have perfect hard-boiled eggs every time.
or you can use pressure cooker.
You could use a pressure cooker.
I don't have an Instant Pot, but I have a pressure.
I just tried one with like using this a steaming tray, you know, so you have the water boiling underneath and then you put the eggs in on the like your vegetable steaming tray. And I can't remember if you like leave it in for 9 minutes or something, but then you don't have to watch them at all.
Yeah, we do that. We put them in a steamer here. We steam them for 16 minutes in just a big industrial steamer.
Chef, if I want to hold this for a while before I serve it, is there a place to stop at?
Yeah, so take it right before you add the butter and cheese, or even where you add before you even add the last bit of stock, and pull it off the heat and just let it sit, and then reheat it. And you add a little bit of water, and then your butter and cheese, and you're ready to serve.
And you put in the shrimp right when most of the liquid was gone the first time around, right?
Correct, right after the chicken stock. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Of course. I went online on Amazon to look for the propane burner. There must have been 40 of them. I mean, I don't know which one to get.
Send me an email and I'll send you a link back of my recommendation of just a nice and expensive one.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay, my pleasure.
Thank you. This is always our pleasure.
These are so much fun. Anyway, guys, thank you. Enjoy your dinner. Have a wonderful night. And I'll see some of you tomorrow for Taco Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
All right.
we ordered one. I mean, everything we've ordered was two, and this one we ordered one for both of
We'll
these.
figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
All right, thank you guys. Have a great night.
See you
Thanks, Chef.
too.
Bye.
Hi, thanks, Chef.
Nice cooking with you all.